Well, good morning, everyone. I think you have chosen the most exciting session to be at today because for the first time in 10 years, we have new rules in Harris County. I know most people don't get excited about change, but in our industry, it doesn't happen very often, so we do get very excited about this. So we're going to give you a quick overview today. If you haven't already received your thumb drives, let us know. There is a PDF copy of the new Texas Food Establishment rules on that thumb drive, and we're going to have links to that posted on our website as well. So you heard a brief overview of the FDA, the state, and Harris County this morning, so this is just going to reiterate that. Now, the FDA food code is updated every 2 years. Texas, of course, doesn't work that fast, but the FDA puts out their model food code every 2 years. The changes to the food code are made in response to the Conference for Food Protection and CIFSCAN, the Conference for Applied Science and Nutrition. Texas has operated under the 2001 FDA model code since 2006 when they last updated their rules. But late last year, thanks to a lot of hard work from our state health department, Texas has adopted the 2013 FDA model food code. Harris County, though, because we are so large, we are a little bit special in that we have some additional rules that are allotted to us because of our size and the number of constituents that we have within our jurisdiction. And all the rules that are enforced in Harris County are enforced by us, Harris County Public Health, the Environmental Public Health Division. So what makes Harris County special? That's because we have a clause in the Chapter 437 of the Texas Health and Safety Code that states counties with a population exceeding 2.8 million can impose additional rules pertaining to food manager certification and on mobile units. So as you heard this morning, Harris County has a population of 4+ million. Only 2.2 of those reside in the unincorporated areas of Harris County, where we inspect nearly 8,000 food establishments with 28 food inspectors. So, new rules. This is very exciting. So, what exactly does this mean? What has changed? Well, the bulk of the rules really did not change. The inspection report, however, does look very, very different because we are going from 27 violations to 47 violations, which means every single line in the new Texas Food Establishment Rules, or TFER, has a violation number assigned to it. So there's no more critical, no more non-critical, it's all a violation. So when I say most of it's the same, I'm talking the practices, the safe food practices regarding hand washing, regarding temperature control, regarding storage practices, regarding warewashing and sanitation. Those did not change, but there is a lot of procedural and training pieces in the new TFER that have changed. We do have some updates regarding new violations, and we're going to go over those in just a minute. I apologize, there we go, okay. So one of the biggest changes that's going to be the hardest one for our staff is a terminology change of going from PHF, or potentially hazardous food, to the new term, which is TCS. TCS is time and temperature controlled for safety foods. So PHF, we're trying to switch everybody's thinking over to these foods must be controlled for safety by either time or temperature, not just the term potentially hazardous any longer. Also, cut leafy greens will be identified as a TCS food and must be maintained at or below 41 degrees. Cut leafy greens include torn kale leaves, that includes chopped cabbage, it includes shredded lettuce. But if you still have the entire head of lettuce from the field, that's not considered a cut leafy green until you actually cut the leaf portion of the produce. Something else that we have previously not asked for in our inspections is a first aid kit. So a new rule is that you have to have a first aid kit in all of your food establishments, and it will be a violation not to. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already have this. It's just not something that we have inspected for before. Being in a kitchen, you have sharp objects, you have hot objects. People are going to hurt themselves from time to time. But now it's mandatory for you to have that first aid kit on premises. And we all know you have to have soap and towels or a drying device at your hand sinks. However, the TIFR has gone a step further and now says to avoid contaminating your hands after hand washing, employees must use a barrier, such as a paper towel, when touching surfaces like door handles and sink faucets. So now when your employees wash their hands, if we see them turn the water off without using a barrier, that's going to be a violation. Now, the TIFR also goes into detail about a knowledgeable person in charge. Now it's going to be a violation if you do not have a knowledgeable person in charge on the premises. A knowledgeable person in charge can be demonstrated by 3 different methods. They can either answer our investigators' questions correctly regarding practices that are going on within your establishment that directly relate to foodborne illness. They could also be by being a certified food manager, which means you have passed an exam and have the certified food manager certificate on your wall. Or you can have no priority violations during your inspection at the establishment. We're going to get in a little later to what the different breakdowns of violations are, but the priority violations are violations that are directly related to safe food practices. The priority violations in an establishment relate to proper hand washing, bare hand contact of food, right to time and temperature control, cross-contamination prevention, and clean and sanitizing practices in your establishment. The Big 5 reportable foodborne illnesses has now become the Big 6. They have added salmonella to the list of reportable illnesses. So while there were 5 illnesses, most of you had a sign on your wall about the 5 illnesses that you must report to management. We have re-imaged that sign to include non-typhoidal salmonella, so now there is a Big 6. It is also going to be mandatory for your employees to be trained to know what to report to management. Now, the original food manager certificate that you have at your establishment, it has to be posted in view of customers. So no longer do we have a stick pin board in the back in the office that have all of your certificates on there. They now need to be posted in view of your consumers as well. And another sign that will have to be posted is a sign or placard that states your most current health inspection is available upon request. This sign must be posted in a conspicuous location to consumers as well. So any of your customers can come up and ask to see your most current health inspection, and you have to be able to provide that to them so they can do their due diligence and look and satisfy their nosiness. And the one everybody's talking about today, the big one, a food handler certification mandatory for all employees that handle exposed food is going to start being required as of September the 1st. Now, this is going to be in effect for employees that have been with you longer than 60 days. So if you have current employees and you foresee them staying with you longer than the 1st of September, you probably want to go ahead and start getting that food handlers training underway. Now, this does not change the requirement for having a certified manager on duty at your establishment. The difference is you have to have at least one certified manager. All the remaining employees need to be a trained food handler. Here are a few more details regarding the food handler certification. So anyone that handles unpackaged food or beverages, so if anybody is refilling a drink, refilling condiments, they as well will have to have their food handler certification. If you have your food manager certificate, you do not have to have your food handler certification also. Harris County has their course accredited, and we are going to begin conducting classes around locations in unincorporated county in July of 2016. The course will be offered in English and Spanish, and it will be a classroom version of the course. We are going to have some options for other languages available when people register for the class so that they can listen to it in English or Spanish, but they would be able to follow along with it in Vietnamese or Chinese on a tablet so they can see the presentation in their native language and take the test in their native language if they're comfortable. And all ANSI accredited online courses also satisfy the food handler requirement as well. So more documentation that is required in the new TFR. You must have written employee policy that details how and when your employees are going to report gastrointestinal symptoms and diseases that are transmissible through food to management. So your employees now have to sign a training or be able to prove that they have been trained, that they know when to notify management if they have diarrhea, if they've been diagnosed with salmonella, if they've been vomiting, if they have someone in their home that has Shigella. This training is going to be mandatory and it has to be documented. You also must maintain at your establishment written procedures for the cleanup of vomiting and diarrhea in the establishment. So this is something brand new to most of you. I see a lot of surprised faces. And also just to keep in the back of your mind, the cleanup of vomiting and diarrhea does not necessarily have to be human vomit or diarrhea. So those of you that want to have pets on your patio, those procedures would extend to accidents of pets on your property as well. Now, foods that are packaged on site must include allergen information on the label. And when we say packaging, we're talking about things that are packaged for consumer self-service. So if someone is packaging something to sit in a case where there's no attendant around to hand them the product, that's going to be consumer self-service. If you still have to ask one of your employees for the food, even if it's pre-wrapped, the allergen labeling does not apply at that situation. In Harris County, there are some plans that now will require a prior approval before they can be conducted in a food establishment. Previously, bare hand contact would be allowed if you had very specific procedures in place. Now those procedures have to be pre-approved by Harris County. So you would have to send us a plan regarding your bare hand contact policies, what foods you want to touch with your bare hands, how you're going to handle corrective actions if the process doesn't go well, what steps are your employees going to follow before they would touch the food with their bare hands. This is not a mandatory approval. This is an optional thing. So if you feel that handling a certain food is too dangerous with gloves on and you think bare hand contact could be allowed in that situation, send the request in writing to us and we would work with you on getting that approved. This does not change the requirement for gloves for handling ready-to-eat food. So this is only an optional plan if you would choose to do bare hand contact in your establishment. Another plan that has to be approved by Environmental Public Health before it's conducted is going to be time as a public health control. If you choose to hold foods without temperature control in your establishment, we would have to have that plan pre-approved. Now, time as a public health control was previously allowed under the old TFR rules. It just did not need an approval. The old TFR said you had to have written procedures in place, but that was all it said. Time as a public health control is having procedures in place and a log sheet where if you do hold food without temperature control, you can do so for up to 4 hours, but the food must be discarded at the end of those 4 hours. And non-continuous cooking, this was a new one for me. The new TFR was the first place that we'd seen this. I didn't know what non-continuous cooking was before the new TFR, but if you choose to do this at your establishment, you would have to have a prior approved plan in place. Non-continuous cooking is a process where you would start cooking a food but not complete it, cool it down all the way, and then finish cooking it to its final cooking temperature at a later time. So that would be a non-continuous cooking process. And if you did choose to do that where the food made 2 trips through the temperature danger zone before ever reaching its final cooking temperature, you would have to have a prior approval in place for that. A few other details that are in the new TFR that were not previously part of the rules before. If you're interested in doing reduced oxygen packaging on site or having a vacuum pack machine, there is an exclusion where you do not have to have a pre-approved HACCP plan in place. If you want to reduce oxygen package your foods and get away from all of the tracking and documentation with a HACCP plan, as long as that food is properly labeled, remains on site, and leaves the same package within 48 hours, you would not have to have a HACCP plan. So if you're going to vacuum package some vegetables to cook in individual servings, you can do so without a HACCP plan as long as it is removed from the same package within 48 hours. Chemical containers for sanitizing solution. I know we've talked about these at length before, and before we had to tell you to take them off of your food preparation surfaces. So a lot of you put them on the floor. Well, now you can't have them on the floor either. So you're going to have a bottom shelf at a prep table designated for your sanitizing solution buckets. We want to avoid the cross-contamination of getting sanitizing solution on a food contact surface, but yet we don't want the solution to become contaminated from sitting on the floor. So the new TFR specifies that that chemical solution bucket must be stored at least 6 inches off the floor, just like a food would. You're going to have, one of the duties of a person in charge is to check the temperatures of deliveries as they come in. A new violation that the TFR specifies is foods received outside of their specified temperature would be a violation. So we want to encourage you to not accept deliveries if foods are delivered at the wrong temperature, because you as a restaurant owner, you don't know what temperature, how long that food's been out of that temperature requirement. You don't want it to stay in the danger zone for too long before you accept it, because now there is a possibility it has a higher contamination rate from the temperature abuse. Improper thawing also has become a violation, and this does not include the temperature control for improper thawing. The temperature violation is separate from the thawing method. Now we have a thawing method violation, so if we see food sitting at room temperature without any temperature control, that's going to automatically be a violation, even if the product is still below 41 degrees.
Okay, so Harris County Court Order. So here is my what am I trying to say? My disclosure. The USB drives that you have has an earlier version of this portion. So we tried to have it ready before that we had our summit, but there were some changes that were made in the court order that changed these slides. Okay, so I'm going to go over what's in the current order that's being accepted on the 28th, or hopefully be accepted on the 28th. Okay. Oops. All right, permits can only be done by the owner or responsible party. The issue that we run into is we get contractors to come in and fill out our application. The contractor is not the owner or responsible person. We have been pushing back against that, and now it's going to be in the regulation that that's the only folks we can accept. So when you're talking with your contractors or you're going to build a new store, make sure the responsible party or the owner is the person that comes in, okay? We talked about this before, owner changes. If you have a change of ownership, it is required now, but it seems to be confusing, so we put it in the regulations to be really clear. So if I'm going to sell my McDonald's to Bob, Bob must come down and go through a pre-opening process with us before he can take over that establishment. If we come in and find out that Bob didn't go through that process, we unfortunately have to cite him and close it down. Okay, and we don't want to do that. We do not want to close food establishments. We don't want to give citations. So really spread the word that when you change ownership, you got to go through a process. It's no different than any other kind of permits that you have to do within the agency. A fire marshal's office is another one. We work very closely with fire marshal's office because once you change that ownership, fire marshal's office has to come out and inspect the establishment. Okay. Farmers markets will have the ability to allow vendor permit to include manufactured frozen TCS foods that is properly packaged and labeled and held solidly frozen. So any farmers markets in here at all? Okay. This was a request by the farmers market, and there was no reason not to do that. It was perfectly safe. Certifications required. A food permit will not be issued. At least one employee on duty has a food manager certification. This is no different than really what we do today. So if we go out and permit you and you don't have a certified food manager, we're not going to give you a permit. Tracking food handlers. Actually, that's the wrong wording. We're not going to track. So what we're doing is there's a $35 fee that we are putting an extra $35 fee for everyone that will go to help resource issues around the new, what I call an unfunded mandate from Texas. So what it does, it gives us additional resources because now it extends our time to do an inspection. So if I extend my time to do inspection, I can now do less inspections for less food establishments. So you have to get more resources to make up for the time, and that's what the $35 is going to cover. The original thought was we were going to have a tracking system, so you'll see that in the slides on that USB. We are not doing that. This is what we're currently going to do. And that was, by the way, Melissa back there, GHRANS worked that out, and so that was the end result. Okay. Let's see. Fire safety. Is there any mobile food units in here? No? If you see a mobile food unit, you know those, you see the mobile food units that look like they never leave, right? They're there all the time. And then they start building structures in front of it and around it. And if you ever walk in them, they're not quite safe. Okay? So they're now going to be required to have a fire life safety certificate from the fire marshal's office that has to go through PID as well. So we're changing that. As well as they can inspect any mobile unit in a public right-of-way. We're changing the term commissary, and on a unit, they're required, just FYI, on a mobile unit, you're required to make everything you do on the unit. You can't have grills, fireplaces, you can't have off-site sheds that you probably often see out there that we don't know about, but we try to fix those. You want to talk about the report?
I'll talk about the report. All right, so in your folders, you all saw the copy of the new 47-item violation inspection report. We're getting away from the term critical and non-critical violation. Now it's going to be a priority foundation, or core violation. So those are the terms that you're going to be getting more familiar with over the next few years. All these violations are assigned either 1, 2, or 3 points. Now that we have...
By the way, I'm going to interject one more time, sorry. Okay. So, and this is on your slide too, inside your USB. You're going to see that current grade on there. There are no grades, okay? That was something that we are changing and I'm not going forward with right now. So another disclaimer.
It's not on there. Anyway, your copy doesn't have grades on there, so he's just... Okay. All right, so your score will come from subtracting the points from 100. So if you have 3-point violation, your score will be a 97. Those scores will be posted on your report, which is no different than us having your previous demerit score on the report. It's just now they're going to come from 100 rather than just adding up the number of demerits. Because they now go to 47 violations, the points value has changed to 1, 2, and 3 from the 3, 4, and 5 that we previously had for the critical violations on the old inspection report. Now, your inspection report at the top has a space for your current score and your previous score, and that's for you as a manager as well to keep track of, did you do better or worse this time than you did the last time we were out inspecting your establishment? Now, the priority violations, these are the 20 violations at the top of the inspection report. These are worth a value of 3 points each. These had the highest point value assigned because they are directly related to causing a foodborne illness. These violations include your proper cooling temperatures, your cold holding, hot holding, cooking times, reheating, procedural items for time as a public health control if you do hold food without time, without a temperature control in place. Preventing cross-contamination, properly cleaning and sanitizing your utensils, and the management duties for employee reporting of any illnesses or health reporting conditions that they need to complete. Bare hand contact and proper hand washing are also found in this section. the priority foundation items, this falls in the middle of your inspection report. These are 2-point items, but these items all enable safe food practices. So training pieces, documentation, procedural items, this is where you're going to find the items that enable the priority items. It's thought about on this inspection report that this middle section, this is a support structure for you getting everything right in the priority section regarding your safe food handling, time temperature controls, and storage practices. Now, the core violations at the bottom of the report, a majority of these are what our previous non-critical violations were. These are reflective of good standard operating procedures or safe operating procedures, sanitary operating procedures, keeping your establishment clean, keeping things labeled, keeping your physical facilities in good working order, the cleaning of non-food contact surfaces. Now we have dining rooms included in this violation where, any of your decorative items that are hanging on the wall in the dining room, just need to keep those clean, free of dust, so that your customers do have a clean environment to eat in. Storage of utensils and linens. This is where you're going to find the violation for your approved thawing method and the storage of wiping cloths as well. So now we can move on to questions. So please use the Slido feature if you can, because I'm anticipating a few questions here.
And guys, on the Slido feature, if somebody's asking a similar question to yours, or you see a question that you wanted to ask as well, like it so we can get it moved up to the top of the list, okay? Let's take a question from the floor first, and then we'll go to Slido.
And I'm probably not using the right terminology, but I'm going to try. If you had the same violation 3 times in 4 inspections, you got a condition. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Is that rule still in effect with this new health inspection report?
The rule is still in effect, but everything starts from scratch. So everybody starts at 0. Did that answer the question?
Okay, let's go to Slido. How are you going to train your inspectors to check the temp of cut leafy greens?
All of our inspectors have an infrared thermometer, and we are going to use that to take a surface temperature of cut leafy greens, because unless they are in a standing water bath. So if your greens are in standing water, we will take the temperature of the water that they are in, but we will determine the temperature as to whether it's in violation or not by using the infrared thermometer on the surface of the greens and also the air temperature of the cooler in which they're stored in.
Let's take another one from Slido. Laser thermometers do not take internal temperatures. How do you comply with the regulations?
Our investigators also have STEM thermometers, so when they do see a violation with their infrared, they have a STEM thermometer so that they can take an internal temperature as well and document that on the inspection report.
Any questions from the floor?
Yeah, real quick with the lettuce here. We use timestamps readily for all of our cut produce. Will that count and void the surface temperature issue on the cut greens because we monitor with a 4-hour shelf life on an item like that?
Yeah, the 4-hour shelf life would need a prior approval from Harris County Public Health because that falls under the time as a public health control allowance in the TFR. So you just make sure you want to get that process approved before implementing it in your establishment.
Let's go back to Slido. Is turning off a faucet with the back of the hand okay?
No, it's not. That would still contaminate a portion of the hand, and the TFR specifies that all exposed portions of your hand and arms be clean. So you can't use the back of your hand. You would still need a paper towel to turn off the faucets. And then you still have to open the door, and I don't know how you do that with the back of your hand either.
And we'll take another one from Slido. What specifically does nutrition information include?
Okay, that I was hoping you all didn't see because that was actually a typo. The nutrition information, that is coming. And we wanted to incorporate that piece, but because it is not an enforceable part of the TFR yet, nutritional information is only required if you make a claim on your product, such as low fat, low sugar, high fiber. Once you make a nutritional claim, nutritional information must be provided. However, keep in mind that under the new Food Safety Modernization Act and the Obamacare rules, nutritional labeling is coming for menus and for all packaged foods. It's just not something that's going to be enforceable at this time. Okay, for barbecue, I'm not sure that's considered non-continuous cooking, because non-continuous cooking means you would heat it up to less than its final cooking temperature, then cool it off to below 41, and then heat it back up.
Let's take another question from Slido. We have a certified EMT on duty during operating hours. Are we still required to have a first aid kit in each stand?
Yes.
And let's take another one from Slido. My business has multiple locations on our property. Where do I post the certified food manager certificate? In the main office?
The certificates for your food managers and the posting that your inspection report is available for viewing has to be in a conspicuous location that customers can view. So it needs to be up in view of your customers. As long as it's in a conspicuous view of your customers, that's acceptable. But we would ask for the notification that your inspection report is available to be posted at each site.
Any questions from the floor? So we do need you to get on the mic because we need it to be heard by the recording system.
There was a question about turning off a faucet handle with the back of the hand. I think it got missed. Would you like to address that?
Okay, it is not acceptable to turn off the faucet with the back of the hand. The TFER specifies that all exposed areas of your hands and arms must be maintained clean, so the back of the hand would count as that. Therefore, you would have to use the paper towel and not the back of the hand to turn off the faucet.
Let's take two from Slido. What is the logic behind storing chemicals 6 inches off the floor?
Okay, it's not necessarily going to be chemicals, it's going to be your sanitizing solution. So the sanitizing solution, you're storing your towels in that you're wiping food contact surfaces with. We don't want that solution to become contaminated from any mop water or any dirt that may be on, shoes, but the floor is not a place to store anything that's going to be touching food contact surfaces.
Let's take another one from Slido. As we now are required to have nutritional label on, required to have nutritional labels on prepackaged manufacturer goods in addition to an ingredient label?
Not at this time, but it is coming.
And we're going to take one from the floor.
For the first aid kits, is there anything like specific that they would look for to consider? Because we keep certain things, we don't necessarily keep everything that comes in a stocked first aid kit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The state has a recommended list of items to be in a first aid kit that we can get to you.
Okay, do blanched vegetables count as non-continuous cooking?
That would depend on the temperature that the vegetables reached. So if the vegetables reached their 135 final cooking temperature when they were blanched, then that would not be considered non-continuous cooking, and it would just be a cooling process.
Let's take another one from Slido. You stated that a knowledgeable person on the shift or an inspection with no priority violations could substitute a certified food manager. Is that correct?
That is correct under the Texas Food Establishment rules. However, Harris County does have a rule that you have to have a trained manager on duty during all hours of operation.
Okay, let's take another one from Slido. Are inspectors allowed to wear jewelry or Rastafarian hats during inspections? They lack in setting the example.
Our inspectors should not have excessive jewelry on during an inspection. We do ask that they present a good example when they are doing inspections. We ask them to wear hair restraints and to wash their hands properly upon entering the establishment. They are not allowed to touch foods with their bare hands, which is why they don't wear gloves. So if you are seeing excessive jewelry on your inspector, you could ask them to put on gloves if you're concerned about them contaminating any foods in your establishment. And to please call us too and let us know.